Good evening and welcome into a brand new edition of Crunch Time Nightly here on ASTV Productions. My name is Michael Wagenknecht. I'm joined on my side by my good friend. Wait, this isn't Joe. This isn't Scott. This is Tom Franklin from Blue Notes Pod. By God, is that his music?
I guess it is.
Oh, baby! The Blues are still alive!
Yes. Oh, baby, indeed. I am here. I'm here for it all tonight, guys. You know why I'm doing this show tonight for you? I mean, not just because you're my friend, not just because you needed a co-host, not because, Joe and Scott were doing things like, Scott's actually at work right now at Busch Stadium, but we have a 2-2 ball game between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs, top of the seventh as we speak. We have game 3 of playoff hockey, scoreless in the first period. This is too much for me. I have to talk about this and just come on a talk show so I can just detense from all this exciting action tonight.
Well, I mean, for us, when we do Blue Notes Pod, it's usually an after moment thing. We're talking about what happened. Very rarely do you get a chance to actually talk about stuff as it's actually going on. We get a chance to talk Cardinals Cubs while it's going on. We're talking playoff hockey while it's going on. Yes, we want to focus a little bit more on it, and actually watch it. But being able to talk through it may not be a bad thing.
It really isn't. Blues hockey, of course. Forget Cardinals baseball. Imagine the Cardinals weren't playing. The Blues are nerve-wracking enough as we actually see Vladimir Tarasenko take a shot in this series. How about that? He went shotless in game 2. Grubauer with the glove save just now.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Blues and the rest of the NHL playoffs here in a little bit, because there's actually a pretty damn good game going on down in Nashville right now between the Predators and Hurricanes. But we're going to start off with some baseball. Cardinals-Cubs going on right now, and unfortunately, if you're watching the game, as I know you are, Tom, Cubs just took a 3-2 lead. We had a Jock Peterson. It looks like Jock Peterson once again. Peterson has all 3 RBIs for the Cubs tonight as he is homered, sack fly, and actually, you know what? He doesn't get the RBI because Molina has a throwing error. Yadier Molina has a throwing error, and that's how the Cubs score their third run. Tommy Edman, a double as center to score Edmundo Sosa, and Paul Goldschmidt singled in Matt Carpenter to tie it in the bottom of the 6th. And now the Cubs take a 3-2 lead in the top of the 7th with 1 out. The Cardinals have been much, much better the last couple of weeks after starting the season kind of rough, we'll put it that way. A couple of high-scoring games that you were like, man, this pitching staff, I don't know what we're going to see from this team. But they've really started to round into shape and really come together. And you see that tonight in Carlos Martinez, who gets his first start after twisting his ankle, celebrating a home run. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earns, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. I'm pretty sure that's the best we could have expected out of Carlos tonight.
Yeah, not a bad outing from Carlos Martinez at all. I mean, it looked like, his twisted ankle, he was planting on that foot properly tonight. He challenged batters maybe a little bit too much. It looked like he nailed one for sure, and then he got close to another one. But for Carlos Martinez outing that line that you just mentioned, I'll take that from Carlos. I mean, especially given what we've seen from him, in recent years.
Yeah, most definitely. And we talked about this on the show last night. Kyle Hendricks, even though he's having a very subpar Kyle Hendricks year, 4.81 ERA in this game right now, he always seems to just turn into Cy Young when he faces the Cardinals. He's through six hits, an earned run, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. So a line sort of similar to Carlos, but I mean, what is it about Kyle Hendricks in particular and slow tossing pitchers for the Cardinals in general that they just cannot seem to solve?
Well, I mean, everything nowadays in baseball seems to be, how hard you can throw the ball now. Like it used to be, when we were growing up in the 90s, you'd have maybe a couple pitchers at the most, maybe like 5 or 6 tops that could even reach 100 miles an hour. And to even hit that on the radar was extraordinary. Now it seems like every team has 1 or 2 guys that can do that. So, we need to not forget about pitchers like Kyle Hendricks and people of his ilk, like, remember Bud Norris, used to own the Cardinals. He was not a hard throwing guy either. You could still be crafty in this league, and in fact, maybe that's to your advantage because everyone's, It feels like this has become such a, fastball slider league nowadays. You're expecting the hard stuff. If you can still keep batters nowadays off balance, you've definitely got a career in the major leagues right now. And you know what? Kyle Hendricks, he's a guy for the Chicago that's been like Mr. Steady for them. Like he's a guy that's like, you rarely see a truly bad outing from. He's just that very steady, almost kind of like a Bob Tewksbury-esque guy where, he just I don't think he doesn't throw that slow, but he can control the pace of the game. He doesn't allow too many long balls, and he's just a frustrating guy to go up against, and unfortunately, as you said, the Cardinals, I think we just got a lot of dead red hitters that sometimes can't handle the off-speed stuff.
I tell you what, anytime you can throw out a Bob Tewksbury reference in a late 2021 season, I mean that's
I'm
huge.
wearing the hat from that era, so literally,
that logo.
It's a throwback.
That is one of the best logos the Cardinals have had. I mean, I love the birds on the bat, but for some reason, that circular logo just strikes memories in my heart.
Well, it harkens back to memories of going to Busch 2, and you walk down the steps to your seat, whether you're in the upper deck or lower deck, and you can feel the heat coming off the field because it's AstroTurf, and of course Busch Stadium, as we all know, held the heat well. Which someone posted a picture, by the way, on Twitter. Augie Nash on Twitter posted an 1968 photo of fans piling out of Busch Stadium, and they all were wearing suits and they were all wearing jackets, and I'm like, these guys are dying because it's Busch Stadium, and you don't go to Busch Stadium in the middle of July in a full suit unless you just have a death wish, really. And I think fans learned that pretty quickly, because I think the era of suits, at ball games kind of went away in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, you saw a lot of it at Blues games, but obviously it's colder in there. You got the ice, and there's a bit of a chill. So wearing a suit and dressing up was something that people did, and I think you did. I think you saw a lot of transition from them doing it at Cardinals games, especially once the Blues became a part of the fabric of the city. People moved that direction, and they continued to dress up as we continue to monitor the game. Our favorite person, Chris Bryant, doubled in Jock Peterson for a now 4-2 Cubs lead.
Which is interesting because Brian doesn't play well at Busch.
No, he must be bored.
This is kind of bizarro night, yeah, because you have Brian coming through for Chicago, and you have Yadier Molina not coming through for the Cards. So he just had a chance with the bases loaded. He's usually good for at least a single, driving one of those guys home, but nope. And then he had that throwing error earlier, so it's different. Maybe we're just maybe the Cards are getting used to the fact that there are fans in the stands, and of course tonight's the first night that they've been able to expand capacity. They sound great on TV, by the way. And it's just we experienced that, Wags, when we went to a Cardinals game a couple weeks ago, just being there, being in the stadium again, experiencing the usual baseball smells, like the smell of hot dogs, which you just if you've been to Busch Stadium, you know what I'm talking about. Just it's a sensory experience that I wasn't prepared for, going back. I didn't realize how much I missed this until I came back. So watching the game right now, seeing a lot of fans, behind home plate, it's just like, oh man, the world is healing. The world is healing.
We're getting closer and closer and closer to being back to normal, and it's a great thing to really be experiencing. And I cannot wait to get back again. I mean, I've been to the stadium twice this year. Yeah, just like you said, the sights and the sounds, even with the smaller capacity that they had. Now, I will say this: now that once they go to full capacity, I'm going to miss the ability to get out of that stadium quickly, getting to my seat and not having to walk around people, not standing in long lines. I'm going to miss all that, but I cannot wait to have full capacity.
If you've not been back to Busch yet, get there before they expand 100% capacity, because having actual room to maneuver in the concourse is awesome. Okay, it was a great. We went there when it was just 30%. Now it's 60%. They'll go to full capacity in mid-June, so you've got some time. I have a buddy of mine I work at KMOX, and our other morning producer, he's a part-timer. He just splashed out $150 on 2 tickets behind home plate, just above the green seats. And and he never does that. He's always been a cheap seat guy. He's always been, if he can get a free ticket, get in. Obviously, I mean, he works part-time, so he's not exactly swimming in cash. But he wanted to do this because he heard of my account, your account, other people's accounts of going back to Busch and just savoring the game day experience again. And he decided, you know what? I'm not just gonna go back. I'm gonna go back in style. So he's sitting right behind home plate for Sunday's game between the Cards and the Cubbies, and I'm halfway tempted to get a ticket myself. There's still tickets available for this weekend series,
cheap, which is really kind of crazy considering it's a Cubs series too. They were promoting $20 tickets. I'm like, it's the Cubs. I know it. And wouldn't you think they would up it a little bit with less capacity too? That's surprising to me.
You would think, I don't think Chicago fans are traveling as well as they were, so I think that kind of plays a part of it. And I think there's still some fans that are reluctant to, go back out in public, and we're still, being, I guess, COVID conscious, if you will, which is totally fair. But yeah, it's getting to the point where it's going to be fine. We're going to have 100% capacity. I want to hear Busch Stadium rocking again, and it's that time is coming.
That it is. June 14th is when they go to full capacity. Cannot wait for that. I'm going to run down a quick scoreboard check real quick as we get near the end of our first segment here. We had the Orioles and the Nationals going at it tonight. Steven Strasburg back in the rotation after coming back from injury. 5 1/3 innings pitched, a hit, 4 walks and 4 strikeouts in his return. The Nationals a 4-2 victory over the Orioles. You had the Yankees and White Sox. Man, the 2 of the top teams in the AL right now just went absolutely at it tonight. You had Carlos Rodon go 6 innings, 2 hits, 13 strikeouts. Jordan Montgomery, 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 11 strikeouts. And it took him to the bottom of the 9th for this game to be decided as Gleyber Torres singled in the winning run in the bottom of the 9th to get the Yankees a 2-1 lead, or a 2-1 win.
And respect where respect is due. You just said Chicago White Sox, one of the best teams in baseball, managed by Tony La Russa. Tony La Russa has the White Sox playing good baseball. Yes, he's a little odd. Yes, he's a little controversial, but you know what? They're winning. And isn't that why we play the game?
That is exactly why you play the game. And it's going to be really funny when you don't hear much about the talk of what was going on when they continue to win. So,
exactly.
and the Cardinals get to see the White Sox here in the next week or so. So we better watch out. Red Sox an 8-3 lead over the Phillies in the bottom of the 8th. The Reds an 8-4 lead over Milwaukee in the top of the 8th. That's one we need to bear watching. The Twins bats finally came alive. 10-0 lead over the Indians in the top of the 9th. Mets Marlins tied at 3, bottom 9. The Braves also broke out the bats against the Pittsburgh Pirates. 15-0 right now. Bottom of the 8th. Bases loaded, 1 out for the Braves. I think everybody in the lineup for the Braves has hit a home run tonight. So that's going to be that's a good fantasy game for sure. Rays and Blue Jays tied at 5, top 7. Rangers 4, Astros 1 in the bottom of the 6th. The Royals have a 5-3 lead over the Tigers. Diamondbacks trail the Rockies 5-0 after the Rockies exploded for 5 runs in the first 2 innings. Actually, now it's 6-0 Rockies. And then you've got A's, Angels, Dodgers, Giants, Mariners, Padres, all just now underway out on the West Coast. We're going to take a quick break here on Crunch Time. We're going to come back and we're going to dive into the NHL playoffs. We've got the Blues in action against the Colorado Avalanche tonight and a couple other really good games. We're going to focus on the Blues first and then talk some rest of the NHL playoffs after that. So make sure you stick around for more Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. And we're back here on Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. Tom Franklin, Michael Wagenknecht joining you, talking all sports for the next couple of hours, not next couple hours, next 45 minutes or so. I could talk for hours on sports for sure. We're going to get into some NHL playoff talk. The Blues are in action against the Colorado Avalanche. Game 3 series shifts back to St. Louis tonight. Unfortunately, the Blues are missing some of their big-time defensive players in Justin Falk, Robert Bortuzzo especially. But it looks like to me that the Colorado Avalanche are missing a guy tonight as well. But I hadn't heard anything about a suspension. Have you?
I have not heard anything about it. I think all signs are pointing to Nazem Kadri getting a substantial suspension. I mean, it's looking like that. Unfortunately, it's going to be a tall mountain for the Blues to climb back. But I don't think we see Kadri for the rest of this series. He might miss a lot of next series at this point because, again, he got called in for an in-person hearing with the NHL. And the way that works is basically if you're going to be, if you're just going to be fined or if you're just going to be suspended for a couple, games, they usually don't bother with an in-person hearing. But he has been offered an in-person hearing via Zoom that usually indicates he's getting at least 5 or more. And his hit on Justin Falk was so bad that even the Denver Post is like, I don't want anything to do with him. Done. If the next time he's back in an Avalanche uniform is too soon, he's done. He does have 1 year left on his contract, so he would have to be traded in the offseason. They need to give Landeskog a contract. So you already had a built-in reason for getting rid of him. Not only that, but he, as I tweeted out the other night, the guy has like 1 goal in 20 games and 4 assists. So he's not getting it done on offense. So he goes and just, completely sends Justin Falk back to the 3rd grade, with that lousy hit. Yeah, it's going to be bad. And I say that because despite the fact we're talking about player safety here with the NHL player safety, as we all know, they can be just like spin the wheel and wherever the wheel lands, that's the suspension it ends on. But it sounds like that they're going to take a serious tact with Kadri, and thank goodness for that.
Are you surprised? I know obviously the playoffs, it's such in quick succession, but are you surprised that a decision hasn't been made yet? And the fact that he's not in the lineup tonight, is that partially the reason? Are they like going to retroactively suspend him? Or is this game going to count?
Well, the Avalanche coach came out and said that he saw multiple angles of the hit. He admitted it kind of looked bad. It feels like that they are just preparing for life without Kadri, and what better way to do that than start by not playing Kadri, I guess. And again, I think part of it may just simply be performance, because again, if he hasn't been getting it done on offense, and that's a big part of why they traded for him, a couple off seasons ago, was to give that spark on offense, which he did. And as Blues fans remember, he scored that goal with like 0.1 seconds left. That was, that one game. And he generally actually has been a Blues killer. Sorry, Justin Falk, for that bad pun, but yeah, if he's not getting the job done, this is the playoffs, and Colorado's not going to mess around. They've built a team for world domination essentially, and they are not going to chance it by having Kadri out there, especially if they did have Kadri out there tonight, that he would have a bullseye.
Yep.
On his back, it would be like the Blues starting lineup would have been like from Slapshot, whenever in the championship game the other team just fired all the old goons that they could find. Like Ogie Oglethorpe would have been out there, Screaming Buffalo Swampton would have been out there. It would have been ugly tonight, so I think that was the right move. It would have been a distraction for Colorado, and it gives the Blues a chance. They're through one period right now, nothing. Blues had a good chance at the end of the period when we came back to break. Barbashev was right there on the doorstep, and then he got taken out behind the boards because it's hockey, and that's you can't.
How it usually works.
You can't stand too close to the opposing goalie and get all the shots in the world without getting some repercussions. So
yeah, and that actually resulted in matching penalties as well. So they're actually going to start the second period 4-on-4 as well.
Which, by the way, I want to talk to you about this. Remember, in 2019, when they won the cup, the Blues won the cup by imposing their will on other teams and playing tough hockey. Does it feel kind of like that the table is turned and now it's Colorado imposing their will on us?
It really does. You see that they are winning the board battles. They are preventing the Blues from getting out of their own zone. You see Colorado more down below our blue line than or the red line than we are even in their zone. So yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like that. And I think that's another reason why a guy like Kadri is not playing tonight, despite not being suspended yet, because if he's in tonight, like you said, this team has a mission. They're fired up. They know that they're going after this guy, and they're going to be on their game. And then the crowd as well is going to be a part of that. The crowd is just going to be rabid and intense, just booing, and that gets your team fired up as well. So, yeah, I mean, Colorado feels like they've got the upper hand in this series. Why would you give the Blues or their fans something to get them back on the ledge? And that's why, and that's another reason why Kadri's not in. But yeah, exactly. I think Colorado does and is imposing their will. And the sad thing is watching game 2 the other night, Colorado's not as good as I thought they actually were. They've got a really good couple of lines. They've got a really good defenseman in Cale Makar. But outside of that, there were a lot of mistakes, especially from that second period on. Giveaways in their own zone, missed passes, just lazy play. Now, maybe it's just them feeling like, hey, we're ahead. We can be a little bit looser. But, I mean, you look at some of the names that they have. Timmins is one of their defense. Who is this guy? The Blues have a chance to take advantage of some of these things. And if they can capitalize on it, they might still have a shot to make this a series.
They still very much could. And you make a good point about how, yes, the Avs have a lot of talent, but it's young talent. They have Bowen Byram, who I think is 19, 20 years old. I mean, he's an option for them this playoffs. You mentioned Connor Timmins, who's been a prospect that they've been letting percolate for a little bit. He's in his still in his lower 20s as well. So they're relying on a lot of youth. Tyson Jost, I think he's 21, 22 years old. They have Alex Newhook, who they signed to an entry-level deal this season. He's 20 years old. So one thing that we know, just from watching, the young Blues, that have come up over the years, like, watching, the likes of TJ Oshie and Patrick Berglund over the years. And then even Tarasenko, you can have all the talent in the world, but, you still have to get that NHL experience in you before you really become the player that you're supposed to be. And this is a heck of a way for some of these young players to get that NHL experience in the crucible that is the playoffs right now. It's interesting. You're right. I mean, Colorado, very top heavy team. That top line of Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen is absolutely unbelievable. They have done a really good job of trying to get away from the notion that they're just a one-line team. They just have that one line. They've added, Burakovsky. They added Kadri, which, he's going to be out for a while now. Brennan Saad in the offseason, who was, I don't think he set the world on fire for Colorado, but they appreciated having him, and his scoring ability in the lineup. And then their defense is just as you kind of pointed out. I mean, they have Makar. But a lot of their defense is young, and Grubauer still has something to prove in net for Colorado. I mean, he battled injuries a little bit, and I think there's still kind of a feeling with Grubauer that maybe he's not going to be the long-term number one guy in Colorado. They're still kind of like waiting to see when this Grubauer was supposed to be number one quality and that could lead them to a Stanley Cup. Where is that Grubauer? Well, he's played pretty well against the Blues so far. I mean, in the first 2 games, and then this game, he's still pitching a shutout. So, but there's still opportunity. I mean, look, this is a team won the Cup 2 years ago, the St. Louis Blues, and still have a lot of talent from that Cup team. And the core is, minus Pietrangelo is still there. So it's the playoffs. Anything can happen in the playoffs. Hockey is one reason hockey is so exciting, Wags, is because it's like that any given Sunday factor in football. Oh, yeah. Where the worst team in football could reasonably beat the best team in football. Just, if certain bounces go their way, hockey's the same thing. It's anything can happen. And I still don't write out you can never totally count out the St. Louis Blues. You just never know.
You can't. And for me, it always comes down to, your top lines are essentially always going to cancel each other out. Now, in this case, I don't think that's totally true. I think Colorado's top line is much better than the Blues top line.
Yeah.
But usually in the playoffs, it's your bottom six or your third pair of defenses that are going to really make the difference in these series. And I look at the Blues, and you look at the bottom of their lineup, you've got a Barbashev, a Blais, a Bozak. Zach Sanford's going to be down one of those bottom six guys. And I sit there and I go, I would take, even with all the headaches that a guy like Zach Sanford has given this Blues team and Blues fans in general, I still think I would take that bottom six and their chances against Colorado. Yeah, McKinnon's going to get his goals. That top line is going to score and score a lot. But this Blues team, and we talked about this on Blue Notes a lot, this team is 4 lines. It's not a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 lines. So yes, your top line may not match up against the other team's top line, but you've got 4 lines that you can effectively run that are going to match and maybe even exceed the 1 or 2 lines that other teams have. And that's what I'm looking at. Barbashev, like you said, he has 3 shots tonight, 4 hits. You've got Mike Hoffman with 2 shots tonight. So guys that are needing to get the shots that are not top 6 are doing their part. And I think that's going to be a big key for the Blues for tonight and going through the rest of this series.
Yeah, everyone has to chip in just like they did 2 years ago. And it's definitely a team game. And, the thing we forget with Sanford, if this were a full 82-game season, he's probably a 15 to 20 goal scorer, which those guys don't grow on trees in the NHL. And, yes, Sanford has a style of play that can frustrate you now and then. He has these mental blips that happen and where he causes turnovers. And, sometimes he just plays a little bit too soft. He's 6'4", 210 pounds. You want a guy like that to be a little bit more physical. But the fact of the matter is Sanford is still a valuable player on this team. And if you can get him going, I remember in the Dallas series 2 years ago in the playoffs, Pat Maroon came up big, not just with that double overtime goal that we all know and love, but he came up big in other parts of that series as well. And he was a guy that, in the regular season, I think a lot of Blues fans wrote off, and we were I remember they had a bobblehead giveaway for Maroon during the season, and we were all worried if he was still going to be a part of the team when they gave away the big rig bobblehead. We all thought that he was going to be traded, but he ended up sticking around. And you need those third or fourth liners to make a cup run, to chip in on offense as well. I mean, Tarasenko, yes, we need to see him get going a little bit. Mr. $7.5 million, Mr. Former franchise. We need to see him get going a little bit. And I think O'Reilly, he's used to playing with Perron on his side. I think his play has been affected badly by not having him, and he's having to gel with Schwartz and Schennigan. So, but it's been 2 games, and they've come off to a good start here in the first period, going into the second now. And as Blues fans, all we can do is just sit and stew and keep our Mylanta within arm's reach.
Very, 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 very close. Mylanta, vodka, the same thing, right? I mean, it's the same thing. So, and about 5 minutes or so to go in the first intermission. So, second period getting ready to get underway in St. Louis between the Blues and the Avalanche. Currently a 4-2 Cubs lead. Bottom 7, Dylan Carlson up to bat for the Cardinals in that game. Minute first and third. So, hopefully Dylan can do a little bit of damage here as the Cardinals are looking to come back in that game. We're going to take another quick break here on Crunch Time. When we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into the NHL playoffs because there's a couple other games going on right now and kind of want to get your thoughts on those. So join us after the break for more Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. And back here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions, and breaking news, absolute breaking news, just announced. Tom sent it over to me. The suspension for Nazem Kadri has been announced. 8 games. Now, there will be an appeal, I'm sure, and I'm sure that might get reduced, but your first reaction to 8-game suspension for Kadri?
I didn't think NHL players' safety had it in them. I was thinking more like, 5 or 6 games max. 8 games, I mean, that is essentially, that could be this series and next series that he's gone. And the fact that they already held Kadri out tonight, we were talking about, maybe it's performance-based, maybe it's just so he's not a distraction. I do kind of agree with that Denver, Denver Post article. Like, I wonder if that was indeed his last game as an Avalanche player. I mean, because he's, from the video that the NHL player safety released on the hit, they note that from the collective bargaining agreement, players who repeatedly violate league playing rules will be more severely punished for each new violation. So that went into the 8 games. This isn't a guy that's, had a clean nose for his entire career. He was suspended before twice when he was a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, which, I think was one reason why they traded him. They felt that Kadri was expendable, not just because of all the talent that Toronto had, but they needed a defenseman, and you have this knucklehead on your team, this talented knucklehead, but a guy that you could, get off your payroll. So, this is the NHL finally doing the right thing here, laying down the law. And in their key points, and the rationale for their 8-game suspension, they point out it was an illegal check to the head. Falk is injured. Ruby said Falk was doing okay, but wasn't, didn't want to commit to seeing Falk again this series. So he's still, he's still dealing with that. And then, of course, Kadri's significant history in the past. So, kudos to the NHL player safety department for finally
very good. Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, like I said, 8 games. He gets held out tonight. It doesn't count, and you don't want to be pessimistic, but let's say the Blues get swept. Obviously, one game is Sunday, and then the entire next series potentially, where if it goes 7, he's out for that. That's a huge, huge blow. Now, like I said, very likely he'll probably appeal it, but with his history, I mean, they can't reduce that, can they? Or did they build it to 8 games to give them the ability to?
I think they honestly, Colorado, I think they just bite the bullet on this one and just say, you know what, serve your time. We'll deal with you in the Western Conference Finals, basically. I mean, I really got the impression from their own head coach that, he wasn't too much of a fan of the hit. He even admitted it didn't look good. So when your own coach is coming out and saying, yeah, it's probably bad, that's we've seen from Berube. I mean, that's code word for you're in the doghouse.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, recent performance or not, you have a guy like Nazem Kadri on your roster because he is a producer on both ends of the ice, and you're paying him the money to do that. And you're going to be without him. You don't even have the option of playing him for 8 games, so that's not going to endear him to Coach Bednar with Colorado.
Not at all. That game getting ready to start the second period. A couple of games going on right now, and one final. Let's talk about the one that's already gone final, and that's Boston and Washington. The Bruins came into this game leading 2-1, and they came away with a 4-1 victory tonight. The Bruins getting goals from Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, Charlie Coyle, and Matt Grzelcyk. 3 of those on the power play. Alex Ovechkin, the lone power play goal for Washington. And the Bruins held the Capitals just 20 shots tonight. I honestly thought that Washington had a really, really good chance of winning this series. And now all of a sudden they're right on the brink. And I'm not going to sit there and say Boston's, a team that doesn't have talent, but I'm a really big surprise that this is not at least a tie series right now.
Yeah, I thought the series would be a lot more competitive than it has been. I mean, the Bruins jumping out to a 3-1 lead just kind of, I feel like they're trying to make a statement as well that, don't forget about us. I mean, they still have, a very solid lineup. I mean, this was when you're a team last season, going into the last offseason, and the Bruins didn't feel the need to do anything. that's usually a sign that they like what they have. It's a very solid team. And, I know Washington, starting out this series, they had to start Craig Anderson,
Yep.
For one of the games. Samsonov is back for them, but he didn't look very sharp. And Samsonov, this is, he's a young goaltender. This is his first real crack at NHL playoff hockey. And what a team to do it against then a seasoned team like the Boston Bruins. I mean, you can never count out the Boston Bruins in the playoffs. As much as we like them, as much as we hate them, they're, you usually are one or the other with the Bruins. We don't like them very much here in St. Louis, but you have to respect them. And, they have a chance to clinch on Sunday.
Crazy as it sounds, but you make a great point because they have a lot of talent still. They underachieved in the bubble last year. They still got all of their guys. Tuukka Rask is still there. He's still a great goaltender. So, I mean, this is essentially, outside of Torrey Krug and maybe one guy here or there, essentially the team that the Blues played in 2019 in the finals. So they have the talent, the pedigree, and the ability to get there. I think they are just like Pittsburgh. And I think Pittsburgh's another one of those teams that's really kind of flying under the radar where they might have a chance to make it to the finals. Now I think if the Bruins and Penguins win, I think they might actually meet up in the next round. So one of those teams isn't going to fly under the radar, but you tend to overlook these teams that are really, really good. And Boston's just going out there quietly doing their business, and they're going to advance, and then they might advance again. And before you know it, they're back in the Stanley Cup Finals, and you're going to be like, whoa, what just happened? But it also seems like the window might be closing in Boston too, because you've got guys like Marchand and Bergeron and Rask that are getting near the end of their careers. This might be the last hurrah for Boston too.
Well, not only that, but Tuukka Rask has been kind of made rumblings about, maybe retiring himself. I mean, remember last year he stepped away from the team, going into the playoffs. So because he wanted to spend time with his family. He just had a kid. And, with the COVID situation going on, he wanted to get back to Finland and be there for his kid. I mean, whenever you're a father, I think this was his first kid as well. So like when you're a father for the first time, you don't want to miss, those moments, you have with your child right after he or she is born. And so he's kind of made some rumblings that, he's a family man. He has made a lot of money in his career. I mean, Boston has paid him very well throughout his career. And, at some point, you just have to weigh, family or keep on playing until, your late 30s. And, Rask might be done after this season. He's got
the championships. He's got the money. Why not?
Exactly. So, I don't want to say this is a last hurrah for Boston, but they're almost kind of like playing like it, almost like they know their window is closing. And then you mentioned the Penguins. I mean, it's hard to discredit a team that has Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, but it seems like we all kind of do that. I'm not a big fan of them either. I still think Ovechkin's better than Crosby, and I'll take that to my grave. But at the same time, they still are. They're still a very deep team. They acquired Jeff Carter at the trade deadline, who's a solid veteran center. Played for Los Angeles for the past few years. They have a good goalie situation. Tristan Jarry's been pretty good for them, and they have Casey DeSmith, who's also been very good for them as well. So another team you can't quite discredit. They lead the Islanders 2-1, and I believe are back in action tomorrow.
Yes, that they are, and you look at, we've talked about this a couple of times on this show that, Pittsburgh's a franchise that continues to push out really good goaltenders. Marc-Andre Fleury, then you got Matt Murray, and now you got Tristan Jarry and DeSmith after that. So they do it right. And when you've got, like you said, Crosby and Malkin, I mean, it is what it is. So, and yeah, I saw your look. I just saw the update. Give it to us.
Yeah, 1-0. Colorado just scored. Looked like Barnes for Colorado. Just it was a puck that was advanced through the neutral zone. He had a breakaway. Binnington tried to go out there to cut off Barnes, it looked like, but was just way out of position, and Barnes just kind of flicked it in. A goal. It's a goal that will not look good and will foster similar looks of dismay like the one I just had. So,
oh boy, yeah, not a great start to
and that was Colorado's 6th shot of the game, and we are at 17 minutes to go in the second period. Backbreaker for sure.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this team responds. If they step up and push back, that's great. But if they start to wilt at all, Colorado's going to seize on that, and this is going to be a really, really long game, unfortunately. Carolina and Nashville going to double overtime, a 4-4 game right now. You've got goals from Carolina, Sebastian Aho, Jordan Stahl, Vincent Trocheck, Nathan Pesce. Nashville, Ryan Ellis, Philip Forsberg, Mikael Granlund, and Ryan Johansson. So this game getting ready to go into double overtime. And I kind of want to touch on Nashville real quick because I looked at the score sheet and I saw Philip Forsberg's name on there.
Yeah.
And this kid was a guy that obviously killed the Blues for the last couple of years. And he was the throw in a trade with Washington and all that kind of stuff. Washington's missing him completely. But he's kind of fallen off the face of the earth the last year or so. I mean, is that a bit of a surprise to you, or is it just that we're just not looking down at Nashville to him?
Well, it kind of is. I mean, it looked like that he was a superstar in the making, and I think he's just settled into being a very good hockey player, which a lot of those players, tend to get overlooked. I mean, the NHL, look, they're going to market McDavid to death. They're going to market Crosby. They're going to market Ovechkin. I mean, he's just in a level where like he's just not marketed very well. And plus, he plays in Nashville. I mean, I know Predators fans will probably take offense, just like Blues fans take offense to being called a mid-market, but that's kind of what they are. And I think Nashville tends to get lost in the shuffle of the NHL. But you know what? He's still a very potent player. I mean, he had 32 points in 39 regular season games. He's been dealing with injuries, which is part of the reason why he may have gotten lost in the shuffle. But still a very potent player. I believe he's a free agent, or he's about to be. I don't know if he re-upped or not, but he's a guy that is he's 26 years old. He's going to be 27 very soon. He's going into the prime years of his career, and his future in Nashville is kind of interesting because if you look at the rest of the Predators, that's another team where you think maybe the window might be closing on them just a little bit because you have Pekka Rinne, who is probably going to retire this offseason. He's said he's not 100% sure yet, but I think it might be time for him to go. They have a really good defensive core, but it's aging. I mean, I think everyone, their main players on defense, save for Fabro, are in their 30s.
30 and up.
Yeah, 30 and up. And then a lot of their forward core is 30 and up as well, save for Forsberg. So, it's going to be interesting to see what becomes of Nashville in the coming years. Of course, we haven't paid attention to Nashville very much, Wags, because they haven't been in the Blues division. Yep. They're playing in the Central, and then the Blues are playing out west. Nashville was an interesting story this year because they kind of weren't expected, I think, at least after the first half of the season, to even be in this spot. They had a very, like last season, they had a very poor start. Now they're in the playoffs. They're playing with house money. The series is 2-0 Carolina right now. This is a big turning point potential here, this double overtime right now, because if Nashville can get the game winner, you're looking at being down 2-1. There's still all sorts of possibilities. You're probably in there for the long haul. And if you're Carolina, you want to get rid of Nashville as quickly as you can. I mean, this is a team that can still come back and hurt you. If you can go up 3-0, then you still got momentum on your side, and who knows what happens.
Very, very true. Yeah, I think Carolina wants this game to be over with in their hands and to take that 3-0 lead. Just real quick on Philip Forsberg. He is signed through the 21-22 season at $6 million per year. So, yeah, he's got one more year left. Jumping over to the other game that's in action right now, the Jets and the Oilers knotted at nothing with about 2 minutes to go in the second period. The Jets lead that series 1-0. You have to ask it. Edmonton, man.
Early.
They were a team that could have been, and yet I don't even know what to make of Edmonton. I don't think anyone outside of Edmonton knows what to make of Edmonton. I mean, they are the most maddening team in hockey. They have to be. I mean, and we say that as Blues fans, our team drives us nuts. Imagine being in Edmonton. I mean, you have, for one, you had the 80s dynasty. So you probably, if you're, our age or a little older, you're used to winning hockey. So the last 10, 15 years have to be an absolute just,
canker sore for you as an Oilers fan. You have all these high, top picks, Nail Yakupov and Jesse Puljujarvi and, the ones that haven't worked out. And then finally, it looks like, okay, the ship's being righted. Connor McDavid probably has his best season in the NHL, which is saying something. I mean, when you play 56 games and have 105 points, 33 goals, 72 assists, that is Gretzky level, which, of course, Edmonton Oilers fans know a little something about Wayne Gretzky. That guy right up there. Yeah, absolutely. And what a waste it would be, Wags, if Edmonton kowtows, to Winnipeg, and it's another lost year.
It would suck royally for Edmonton fans. I mean, it really would, because it seemed like, even though Toronto was kind of running away with this division, it seemed like Edmonton was kind of right there and was going to sweep up the pieces, and maybe you have an Edmonton-Toronto division final, and that would be something right there, a Leafs-Oilers thing. That would just be incredible, but they just cannot seem to almost get out of their own way, and it's goaltending. I mean, I'm not saying that goaltending is terrible in Edmonton, but they've never committed to defense or goaltending, and that is going to be the absolute killer for them.
Absolutely. And then on the flip side of that, Winnipeg, I think that, you talk about, teams that get overlooked. I mean, Winnipeg, they can't even get attention in their own country, compared to, the Torontos and Edmontons of the world. So, yeah, I mean, it's we'll talk about flyover country.
They don't even have an airport.
Exactly. They still don't. But regardless, I mean, this was a team that I don't think a lot of people really had a lot of faith going into this season. I mean, at least compared to, like a lot of people thought Vancouver was going to build off of, their playoff run last year. I mean, they, of course, they took out the Blues in rather handy fashion last year.
Yeah.
Calgary's always kind of, been in the periphery of, maybe being a very competitive team. So, a lot of people looked at Winnipeg and they saw, they had the issue with Patrick Laine. They lost a lot of strength on defense. And, so you kind of combine that. It's like a lot of people wrote off Winnipeg. They're leading 1-0, in the first round, and they're in the playoffs, and they didn't squeak into the playoffs. They got in there pretty comfortably. So watch out for Winnipeg. And watch out for the pain and suffering that you'll be hearing out of Edmonton if they don't right this ship.
Well, and you also have Toronto down 1-0 in their series. Now, will Canada burn if it's Montreal and Winnipeg in the division final and Toronto and Edmonton get knocked out?
Everyone in Canada is under severe lockdown right now, so I think that might save Canada. Right now, they're no one's standing on guard for thee right now. They're all locked into their apartments right now. So I mean, I think they'll be okay. But in any other year, at some point, if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, you just got to snap. At some point, it's got to be coming.
It's going to be some point soon. I can guarantee you that. And just to give you guys a quick update on Jonathan Tavares, the guy that took the wicked knee from Corey Perry last night, unintentional. And we know Perry's a dirty player, but it was a very unintentional bang play. It sounds like all indications are that he's doing well. He was released from the hospital last night, went home. He's under the care of team physicians and all that stuff. And it seems like he's going to be okay. But man, I tell you what, seeing that just happen. Wow.
Yeah, they said he's still going to be out indefinitely. And of course, anytime you're dealing with head injuries, you got to play on the careful side. I mean, once upon a time, he might have been back in there for the next game. Same thing with Justin Falk. I just read Bob Plager's biography, and he talked about player, how he and others played with concussions. That's just the way you did it back then. But yeah, the hit on Tavares, the initial hit. It was just a basic body check. It wasn't a dirty hit or anything like that. And this is just in case you didn't see it, as Tavares is falling to the ice, Perry clips him with his knee. It will just, as you said, very bang play. The reaction from Tavares was disturbing. I mean, and you were absolutely, and everyone had the right to be worried about Tavares with the way he was acting after that. He was in La La Land. I mean, he absolutely was, but it's good to see that he's going to be okay. It's good to see that Justin Falk apparently will be okay as well long term. Those are two very solid players that you hate to see their careers impacted negatively because of something like that.
Yeah, I mean, very much so. I mean, we saw with David Perron, the Joe Thornton incident, he was out for a long time. You're really hoping for both those players' sake and Robert Bortuzzo's sake as well. We didn't really talk too much about him, but for all of their sakes, that they're able to get back quickly and healthy and be able to make an impact. So we're going to take another break here on Crunch Time. Come back, talk a little bit miscellaneous stuff, some things going down, PGA, boxing. There's an interesting announcement in boxing that we're going to chat about as well. So make sure you stick around for more Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions.
Hey Crunch Time fans, my name is Graham Forsyth. I'm the host of Coffee with Graham and the Prospect Show on ASTV Productions. On Coffee with Graham, I talk to athletes, coaches, and whoever else involved in the amateur sports scene in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And on the Prospect Show, I talk to the best young hockey prospects from around North America. You can catch all the coverage on ASTV Productions. You can catch Coffee with Graham on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And for the Prospect Show, that show airs every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Hope to see you there. Have a good one.
And we're back here on Crunch Time. And before we get to the miscellaneous stuff, man, I'm looking at this box score for the Cardinals game. Cody Whitley and Tyler Webb. Why is Tyler Webb still on this team?
I have no idea.
You get within one run. You get a run back. It's 4-3 going into the top of the eighth. What? It's now 6-3. Bases are loaded. One out. You've walked a run in.
Tyler Webb needs to be on the next bus to Memphis, like the red eye tonight. Leaving tonight. It's inexcusable at this point with him. I mean, this is just I mean, further proof that if you are born with the ability to throw a baseball with your left hand at least 90 miles an hour, you get all the opportunities of the world. If Tyler Webb was a right-hander, he would not be getting the leash that he has right now. That's the only reason I can think of why Tyler Webb is still even the thing.
I don't know. So we'll see what happens.
11.25 ERA in 17 games. Like, really?
That's Brett Cecil-ish.
I mean, you could probably pull a pitcher from your local YMCA league, and he probably, maybe he has about 11.25, but this is YMCA level here.
Yeah.
We're talking about here. We're comparing him to a YMCA pitcher. Come on.
Unreal. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the miscellaneous stuff going on in the world of sports. Right now, you've got the Western Conference final play-in game going on between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors. The Grizzlies hold a 77-65 lead with about 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. This is coming off of the Warriors. They lost on that last second shot to LeBron and the Lakers. The Lakers take the 7th seed. First off, my hatred for LeBron knows no bounds. So to see him hit the game-winning shot over Steph Curry absolutely crushed me. But the fact that the Warriors are trailing by 10 now to the Memphis Grizzlies. I know the Grizzlies have kind of had a bit of an up and down last couple of weeks, but Steph Curry usually finds a way to win these kinds of games. I'm a little surprised that it's a 10-point game right now.
I'm kind of am surprised about that as well. And, Memphis, I mean, beyond just this year, I mean, it's been kind of a rebuild for them over the last couple. And, I think it's just simply a matter for them of Ja Morant, was a very highly touted guy when they drafted him. He's got 20 in this game right now tonight. I think he's coming into his own. I think it just, for the Grizzlies, a lot of players are kind of coming into their own at the right time. Jonas, their center for them. I mean, they got him from Toronto. I mean, he's, always a 3-point threat. He can, get you double-digit rebounds every single game. Don't sleep on the Grizzlies. Don't sleep on the Grizzlies. This is a team that is, their motto is literally grit and grind. I mean, that is their lifestyle, and that's a team you like in the playoffs. That plays that kind of a never say die style. I lived in Memphis for about a year, and you want to talk about a one sports city. I mean, that's it for Memphis, and they are all in on the Grizzlies. Even when they're down, they still draw very well. So I'm happy for Memphis fans that are getting a chance to see some winning basketball again.
Well, and with Utah and Phoenix up at the top of the Western Conference, you're not even really sure how good those top 2 seeds are. So you might be in line for a potential 8-1 upset. And the fact that the Lakers are the 7th seed, you might see the top 2 seeds potentially go down pretty early.
isn't the NBA a lot more fun when you don't have like these foregone conclusion playoffs where it's like a 2 or 3 team race? I mean, to me, it's just so much more fun when there's balance in the league.
And I got to ask you, what do you think about these playing games? I mean, I know we saw a little bit last year with the NBA. We saw it a little bit with the round robins last year with the NHL. I'm a fan of it, and I actually wouldn't mind seeing the NHL employ something like this as they got near the end of the season too. But I didn't. What were your thoughts on the play-in?
I mean, I think it's an an experiment worth having. I mean, I like the idea that I mean, it's almost, and it's gonna be a divisive issue. I mean, some people are thinking that, okay, get the job done in the regular season. I mean, don't have it all come down to a game or two. But I think it just makes the sport more exciting. Everything's on the line. You get to see the players play their absolute best basketball. I mean, when everything is on the line. And in the end, isn't that why we're watching the NBA, is to be entertained? I mean, I might start watching the NBA pretty soon because I'm not being entertained by this hockey game that I'm watching now. The Blues are down 2-0 now. So might have to, if you're Tarasenko, O'Reilly and company, get those golf reservations booked.
Yeah, and guess about who scored the goals tonight? Ryan Graves and Alex Newhook, the guy you talked about a little while ago.
Yeah, the young phenom for Colorado. So, yeah, I mean,
I open tomorrow.
we knew Colorado was going to be a tough uphill battle. I mean, the Blues played the ass pretty well during the regular season, but it's the playoffs, and this Colorado team is just a different beast.
Yep, they certainly are. All right, let's jump over to the PGA Championship real quick. Louis Oosthuizen and Phil Mickelson tied for the lead at 500 today. Phil Mickelson.
He's still around.
Unbelievable. He struggled yesterday, but he had a really good round today. Brooks Koepka one shot back. Day one leader Charlie Connors dropped to 2 under after a 3 over 75. I'm shocked as you that Phil Mickelson's there up at the top.
What year is it?
We talked last night about the fact that Tiger Woods isn't there and not drawing our attention to that to any of the tournaments really, but could a guy like Phil Mickelson still be that kind of guy?
Why not? I mean, he was one of the top 2 golfers, whenever he was at his peak. He was right there, right along with Tiger Woods. Why not? I mean, we saw Jack Nicklaus win the Masters when he was in his 50s. I mean, golf's the kind of sport where it's like if you've got the talent, I mean, yeah, I mean, physically it may be tougher to walk around the course. I mean, keep in mind pro golfers don't get to use golf carts, but
they don't have to carry their own bags. So
that's true. That's true. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But it's like, but yeah, it's. I don't think you can ever discount a guy like Phil Mickelson. I mean, just like you can't ever discount a guy like Tiger Woods whenever he gets healthy again. Hopefully we see him back on the golf course soon.
I hope so too. And another guy you can't apparently count out is Manny Pacquiao. 2 years after his last fight, he is going to fight again on August 21st in Las Vegas against Errol Spence Jr. Pacquiao, an 8-time division champion, 8 different divisions, 62-7-2, 39 knockouts. Going up against Spence, who's ranked as the number 4 pound-for-pound fighter in the world right now. He holds 2 of the 4 major belts in the 147-pound division, 27-0 and 21 knockouts. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because it is boxing, but dude, Manny Pacquiao, I thought the Mayweather whatever YouTube guy he's going up against was going to be the weirdest bout of the year, but Pacquiao coming back, what's up with that?
Well, I mean, he did just, a few years ago get over a tax evasion case, so maybe he needs the money. But which is surprising because I always thought, Pacquiao was pretty smart with his money. Like, wasn't he involved in a lot of business? I think he was even involved in politics,
he's a senator. He's actually a Filipino senator right now.
Yeah, he's still a Filipino senator. So it's like you would think that would take up enough of his time, I guess. But, I think a lot of boxers, and it feels like boxing in particular, you have this, idea that you have one last good fight in you, and when you're a fighter, you're literally fighting to prove that you're the best in the world. And it's very hard for boxers to accept the fact that they may not have it anymore. Now, Pacquiao, he's never had issues making weight or anything like that. He seems like he keeps himself in very good shape. I don't think that's going to be an issue for him. But yeah, it's really interesting to see him come back. I'm curious what he's going to make for this fight, first of all, and secondly, like why? you're Manny Pacquiao. You have a legacy as probably the best fighter of the 2000s. I mean, what's the deal here?
And he won his last fight too. And you think, oh, you won your last fight. You're getting older. Go out on top. Don't risk it. It's going to be really interesting. And honestly, I'm not a huge boxing fan, but I actually might watch this one just to see what he's got, because you haven't heard from him in 2 years, and you're going up against a guy that's right now one of the best pound per pound fighters out there. It could actually be pretty interesting. So we'll see how that goes. Well, Tom, thank you, man, for joining me tonight. It was a blast getting a chance to talk all kinds of sports with you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what we got coming up on Blue Notes on Sunday.
Oh, of course. Yeah, me and you usually just talk about hockey, because you are my co-host on Blue Notes, and we will have an episode for you on Sunday after Game 4, which might be the Blues' funeral at that point. So it'll be the Blues play at 4:00 Sunday afternoon Central Time. So after the game is done, we will go live. And when I say we, I mean me, you, as well as Blues Fan Reacts. Mason will join us as well. He's our third host on the Blue Notes podcast, which we encourage you to follow on Twitter at Blue Notes Pod, and make sure to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff that YouTube influencers like to pump down your throat. So, but yeah, that'll be Sunday, probably 6:30, 7-ish, depending on when the game gets over. Maybe it goes to double overtime. So who needs sleep anyway? Come on. When it's the playoffs.
Yeah, not going into Monday.
Exactly.
Oh, well, I'm going to go drown my sorrows because it's 10-3 Cubs right now, and the Blues are trailing 2-0. So
this was so promising when we started here too. It was nothing for hockey, and it was 2-2 in baseball. And then we start talking, and Wags, I think we blew it.
We jinxed it.
We jinxed it.
We jinxed it. Well, I guess that means that's the end of Crunch Time. That's the end of Blue Notes. That's the end of everything, and you'll never see us again.
Yeah, we'll just talk into our pillows as we cry into them tonight.
That's probably what I'm about ready to go do. So, all right. Well, for Tom Franklin, I'm Michael Wags, Wagenknecht. Thank you guys for joining us here on Crunch Time Nightly. We will see you guys Monday for more Crunch Time Nightly. And also, don't forget to check our interview with Lubos Bartechko as well on Monday. We'll have that around 6:00. So make sure you check that out. All right. Have a great rest of your night. And hopefully both these teams might make a comeback. We'll see. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Have a great night.